of the prime lenses I've always wanted for a long time, I finally saved up and was able to get, and that's gonna be the 35 1.4 G Master by Sony. So it comes in at 1.2 pounds or 524 grams. It also has a 67mm filter thread size. It has 11 rounded blades and has 14 elements in 10 groups. It's a 1.42 in f/16. So if you want to shoot at 1.4, you want to shoot at f/16, you can play with that cool aperture ring. If you have it on any of the numbers between the 1.4 and the f/16, you're gonna actually not be able to dial in your f-stop with any of the buttons on your camera. You're gonna have to make sure you switch it over to where it says A for auto, and then you can do it from your camera, because if you're like me, I definitely didn't know this at first, and it kind of got me because I was like, why isn't it changing? Well, there's your answer to that. So let's do a quick focus test on this thing. I've never done one of these before, so if it's not perfect, I apologize. So a couple things to note is that I'm shooting wide open, and I also have ND filters on there. We'll do a test without the ND filters and all that, just so that way you can see how clear it is. Like I said, the ND filters, sometimes they mess up the image because they're not as perfect as you don't have the glass on there, but if you're filming video, you're gonna need ND filters, so keep that in mind. But as you can see, I think it's holding focus pretty good. Now I'm gonna jump out of frame quick. One thing to note is that you can get really close to this lens and get focus. So if I jump right here, you got my forehead, right? Yeah, so I'm like right there and we're in focus. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind is that there is very close focal distance. So if you wanna have a 1.4 and get something super close and, you know, right there, you can do it because it's gonna pull it in focus. So that is one downfall to this lens. If I'm doing something wrong, let me know, but this is one of the big issues I did notice with this lens. So you can see how everything behind me is in focus, but I'm out of focus, even though all the settings are exactly the same. I just had stepped away and came back, and this is what happens. And even if I hold the shutter halfway down, nothing. But if I mess with the focus ring, right? Cool, we're good. But I shouldn't have to, I feel like I shouldn't have to do that, right? And I want it to follow me because it's in autofocus. So if I step back, I want it to be able to follow me, but it's not, right? Or I step over here, it's not. But if I come back up and get a little closer, like we were doing earlier, to show the focal distance, like I feel like it should be focused on me like it was doing. But all of a sudden, I can't go past here. So keep that in mind if you get this lens. So I turned the camera off and back on, right? So back here is in focus now. But then when I step in, it's focused on me. And I get closer and it's still focused on me. So what gives? I don't understand what the problem is. I've never had that happen to me with the 24-70. So it's something with this lens. So keep that in mind if you do decide to get this lens. I do love this lens, but if I'm using it on a shoot and then I gotta turn the camera off and back on in the middle of a shoot, so when it's embarrassing because you're showing up to a shoot and you're having issues with your camera, you gotta turn your camera off and back on. Second, if you're doing like a run and gun video and all of a sudden it stops focusing and you gotta turn it off and back on, you could miss your shot. So keep that in mind if you decide to get this lens. To me, that kind of is a big deal. Does it happen all the time? No, but it's happened enough to me using this lens that it kind of gives me a little bit of buyer's remorse. Is there chromatic aberration? Is there lens distortion? Every lens has that, but this one's really good and it's not too noticeable.
So this is a raw image of my dog. I have not edited. I have not done anything. This is straight out of the camera. I want you to see the image for how it looks straight out of the camera. So that way you can make a fair assessment without any edits over top of it. So you can see right here, look at his nose. Like, look how moist that still looks right from this camera. Look how sharp that looks. His whole snout right here. Just look how nice and in focus that is, right? And this whole image, you know, is in focus and it's nice. And you're going to notice a couple things with this. There is a little vignetting around these corners, especially in these leaves down here. You can definitely see that, right? You can see it in any corner you look at. But one thing I did notice is there is actually not a whole lot of chromatic aberration with this lens, from what I can tell. Usually you're going to see that where there's two high contrast points. And the area you're going to see it most is right here in his nose. So if we zoom in, you can kind of see it right down here where this green meets his tan area of his fur. And you have to zoom way, way in, even to be able to see it right around here and right down here on his snout, right? This is more of the area you see it. You can kind of see that bluish green area right here. But if I just remove it, then it goes away, right? And we'll go all the way, and we're at 1600%. And you have to really be pixel peeping in order to see it. And, you know, if we remove it, you can kind of see it go back and forth right along this line right here. This was shot wide open at a 1.4. And then we're going to look at one more image really quick. We're going to see this area is in focus, and then we can see how blurry it gets to the sides. And that's what happens when you shoot at a 1.4. You're going to have one small area in focus, and the rest is going to be really blurry. So just keep that in mind if you're using this lens and trying to get a close, tight shot that You may miss focus on somebody's face or something like that if you're really close to it. But when we look here in this area on this stem, we're going to zoom in again, go over and look at that. We are at 1600%. And right here, this is where you're going to see that chromatic aberration. You can see it a little better on this image than the one of the dog. And all we have to do is just remove it and bam, right there. Like, you can definitely see it on this image more than you can on the other ones. But like I said, even if we leave it there, it's nothing that somebody's gonna notice.
I have the filters right here. I'm still at a 1.4. I just cranked my shutter speed up. Obviously, I know that's a big no-no because it's not the 180 rule. Because let's be honest, if you get a lens like this, you're gonna wanna shoot wide open 95% of the time. Like, what's the point of having an f1.4 if you can't do it? But look at that. Look at that. You can see how tired I am. That's what happens when you have a baby. You're in school full time, you work full time, and you're trying to stay healthy. This is just what life's like. That's how it works. You see how blurry that was? The car going by? I mean, I don't know. 1.4, that's why I wanted it. You get that nice blur when you're doing videos like this. So if this is helpful at all, give me a thumbs up. And if it wasn't, give me a thumbs down so that way I know what to create in the future. I appreciate you hanging out with me because there's a lot better creators out there. But thanks for coming along and watching this video with me and, checking out the 35 1.4.